So, a very, very happy evening to all of you. I'm Nazneen Chunawala, a counseling psychologist and director for training and delivery at Shyro Health. For those who do not know Shyro Health is a holistic mental wellness partner for corporates, offering 24 by 7 access to evidence based mental health support. We combine together human led care and AI with the larger aim of helping organizations to build healthier, resilient, and psychologically safe workplaces. Today is a particularly special evening for all of us at Shyro. We are absolutely delighted and honored to have with us Dr. Debbie Joffe Ellis. Dr. Debbie is internationally recognized as a leading authority on rational emotive behavior therapy. She was named a legend in counseling by the American Counseling Association in 2014 and has received several other honors for her contribution to the field. She has co-authored the first edition of Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy with her husband, the renowned psychologist Dr. Albert Ellis, and later authored the second edition published by the American Psychological Association. Dr. Debbie worked closely with Dr. Albert Ellis in her work, and he entrusted her to continue carrying forward REBT after his passing. Today, she continues to teach, write, practice, and speak internationally about REBT. She is a practitioner, educator, author, international trainer, and as many people you may have experienced her work will tell you, she is a wonderful, engaging facilitator. And I think we all are going to get a glimpse of that today. Dr. Debbie, it's a privilege and pleasure to have you with us. A very warm welcome to Shyro.
Oh, thank you. That truly was a beautifully warm welcome. Thank you, Dr. Nazneen. It's a pleasure to be with you. I also want to thank, I'm pointing to my screen, Dr. Ginny Gopinath, an extraordinary man who's contributed so much, particularly to psychology in India. Remarkable. I'm so blessed that he's my colleague and my friend. And thank you to Madhu, the CEO of Shyro. I believe you're very new, but such strong, great energy your organization has, and all of the staff who are making this possible, Saili and Vilay and Moody, and forgive me for whoever I've forgotten, and everyone who's watching this live and any of you who will watch the recording later. It's a joy, it's a privilege to be with you. And if I had a chai here, I would raise my cup to you all. And I'm looking forward to our time together now.
Great. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Debbie. And a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us this evening at Zoom and are watching us live on Instagram and YouTube. I think we have a wonderful opportunity today, not just to understand REBT as a therapeutic approach, but to hear from someone who has lived, practiced, and taught and carried forward this approach for so many years. We have a few questions we would love to explore with Dr. Debbie, but please don't just sit back and listen. If you too have questions, put it in the chat box. We will have time to hear Dr. Debbie's thoughts on it. Okay, so Dr. Debbie, shall we get started?
Let us.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So Dr. Debbie, I think it would be lovely to start with something a little personal. What was the defining moment in your life when REBT stopped being just a therapeutic approach, but became a way of understanding life for you? Or how has REBT changed the way you personally look at the life challenges?
It's such a great question. I would say pretty much from the moment I learnt about it when I was at university. I live in New York. I'm originally from Australia. You might hear the accent, some of you. In any case, like many students of psychology, we're taught a number of different approaches. And there's not one approach that I've learnt about that doesn't have some effective and potentially enriching aspects to offer many people much of the time. But some approaches resonate more than others. And REBT, the moment I heard about it, read about it, was a big yes in my heart and in my viscera. because it aligns with everything I think contributes to enrichment in a human being who's seeking growth. It attends to our thinking. It attends to our emotions and our feelings. It attends to, well, it's not enough to think about it, you've got to do something, our behavior. And so I loved how holistic it is. And also the spiritual element, not religious, but spiritual, in terms of emphasizing unconditional acceptance and compassion. And so so from the get-go, pretty much it was a big yes. And then throughout my life, like many of us, I have had to cope with and experiences loss and grief and suffering for different reasons on different levels. And REBT has contributed to my backbone, to my chin up, to my coping, to my preventing the suffering, which, you know, at times suffering is not unhealthy. It's actually healthy if it doesn't devolve into hopelessness and despondency and depression. But the pain of grief, it hurts deeply, but it's healthy. It reminds us life will contain loss and suffering. And so to complete my answer to this first question, even recently, even right now, there are a couple of major things that, when I think of them, create immense grief within me. And practicing REBT, accepting, well, the grief, the depth of pain, it will not last forever. It's understandable, it's healthy and enriching. And I don't lose myself in it because there's a both and. I can feel the grief and still I'm pointing to my window looking at the beautiful sky and sunshine. And so REBT has given me the life practice of acceptance and proactivity and embracing life.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Dr. Debbie, for sharing your personal movements and thoughts with us. And your passion regarding REBT just transfers. So thank you for that. And as you rightly mentioned, Dr. Debbie, that there are many therapeutic approaches, right? And so we may have participants who are already practitioners and they are practicing probably transactional analysis or acceptance commitment therapy or maybe CBT. Right. So what about REBT? What is that unique perspective that REBT would offer that a therapist who is already inclined in one learning approach may still want to learn about it alongside that approach? So what is it that makes it relevant even today and alongside the other approaches?
I believe the wisdom and practicality and efficiency of REBT leads to it being relevant not only today, but I don't have a crystal ball to foresee the future, but I believe that its wisdom is timeless and ageless. And it even incorporates wisdom of that's akin to some of the wisdom of Patanjali and Vedanta and Buddhism and the Stoic philosophy largely. I think it's quite ageless. So any effective presenter, teacher, trainer of REBT will not, I would say, encourage someone who loves doing their TA or their ACT to stop doing it, but invite them to be aware of, and you ask this, what does REBT offer? Some specific tools and techniques that are not already in those approaches. And it's very easy and effective to integrate some REBT tools and techniques to whatever modality, when I think of the modalities that I know about. I'd like to insert something here as well, Nazneen. Since my husband's passing 19 years ago, and I continue to do my best to carry the torch and make it relevant for the here and now, I've met some younger students of psychology who do not realize that REBT preceded CBT. That my husband, my late husband, Albert Ellis, was a mentor, an advisor to Dr. Aaron Beck, father of CBT, when Beck was researching depression and in the early decade of Dr. Beck developing his approach. In ACT, DBT, positive psychology, executive coaching, there are elements of REBT. And so just for the integrity of historical chronology, in fact, I want to let anyone know who doesn't know that REBT, with influence from wise philosophers that I mentioned and a bit of Alfred Adler, heralded in the cognitive revolution in psychotherapy. So another thing to finally answer this question, REBT's emphasis on the importance of unconditional acceptance. In addition to pragmatic tools that are cognitive and behavioral and emotive, REBT encourages people to unconditionally accept ourselves and others and life when things don't go the way we think they should. And while ACT is called acceptance and commitment theory, there's a different emphasis and a different thrust. REBT, for example, one of the many gifts, it distinguishes between the unhealthy and healthy painful emotions or negative emotions, not negative bad, but they're painful. And this is a specific gift of REBT that other approaches do not teach. There's positive and negative, but with REBT, negative, part one, healthy negative, like grief. Part two, unhealthy negative. And so with ACT, for example, it's like accept all emotions. Well, REBT agrees, accept all emotions. But is this emotion helping you or hurting you? And if it's hurting, well, here's what can be done, hence tools and techniques. Can you tell? I love REBT so much because it helps people, not because I was married to the creator. I loved it just as much before I had any personal connection with him. And that's a whole other long story, maybe not for today, maybe for the workshop in November.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Debbie, for throwing light on it and how REBT can go along with the other approaches and how different it is from the other approaches as well. So just to make it a little more simpler, if you had to bust one myth about REBT, what would that be?
Only one, Nazneen? Can I have a few?
Let's leave some for the workshop.
Okay. One of a number is that it's not deep enough and it's too simplistic. When the fact is, in my decades of experience and observation, and this is not to in any way criticize other approaches, but I'm just talking about REBT. A person changing depends on, number one, their motivation to change, and number two, their effort. It's not enough to think it, yeah. And so in my observation, for some of the people I've worked with privately and also people who I've done brief demonstrations with in workshops like I'll be doing in November, it can change their lives if they're ready to change their lives. And in like a demonstration usually is 20, 25 minutes. There've been a number of people who have said to me afterwards, this completely transformed my life. A few people said this saved my life. And so one misconception, it's not deep enough. Well, in my experience, when a person is ready, it can go in a short time deeper than another approach, which can be helpful, but can last years for the same impetus and insight.
Nice. That brings me to think, Dr. Debbie, is REBT applicable to a person who is 7 years old and also applicable to a person who is 70 years old?
Why stop at 70? I think for the entire, how about 170? And so, yes, Yes, it is. Of course, if one's sharing it with a child, we use different language and different examples than with an older person. And then with a much older person or an older person or a person of any age with some memory issues or dementia, again, we use a different tone or a different manner. But if a person can comprehend, and it doesn't take a high IQ at all, that the way we think creates how we feel. And if our emotions are painful and we're willing to be aware of what we're telling ourselves that creates the emotion and change those thoughts and repeat the healthy thoughts, one can, at any age, if one is not cognitively impaired, change one's life. By the way, when my husband was in his 80s, he wrote a book called REBT. It works for me, it can work for you. He wrote it after a grave illness in his 80s. He had issues all his life, and how he applied it so that he didn't make suffering. There's some suffering as we age for many of us. Physical or people we love die the older we get. There are certain things we could do better when we were younger. We get older, it's a little, that's not me yet. I'm going to stay healthy till I'm 170. That's my wish anyway, or beyond. But anyway, and so he wrote in that little, it's a paperback book, REBT Works for Me, Can Work for You, application to older age. And also in his autobiography that he wrote up until he was too sick to write anymore when he was 93, a few months before he died. And then I kind of put his notes together and it was published, his autobiography called All Out. Yeah, so here's an example. Now, he was an extraordinary man. So let me say, for people who are not geniuses like he was, who are aging and coping with difficulties they didn't have earlier, again, if one isn't cognitively impaired, it most certainly can enhance the life. And a final thing to this, even if a person's cognition has impaired, there's some early dementia or memory issues and so forth, people around them can practice the element of REBT, of unconditional other acceptance. And so the person who's aware they're not up to where they were, what's being modeled is no need to be ashamed. You have worth just the way you are, even though you're older, even though these ones are dead, even though you can't do everything you used to do. So one can model it even to a person who is impaired to some degree, of any age.
Ah, right. That's interesting. And that automatically answers my next curiosity, which I thought I would ask you. But then it automatically answers that you do not need any kind of a self-awareness before getting into REBT. You need not be like very well aware about your thoughts, your beliefs, emotions. REBT can help you get aware at whatever age you are and at whatever state of life you are at, right?
Indeed. The important thing is for a person to be aware that it exists. It or
Correct.
some other life-enhancing tool or philosophy or approach. For some people, it's their spiritual beliefs. For others, it's a different modality or philosophy. And for countless people, it has been REBT again because it's so holistic. The mind, the heart, the behavior, and so forth. And so, it unfortunately or fortunately, or it is the way it is, that for many people, it might take the dark night of the soul before being open to being aware of what might take me out of this agonizing pit. And that's where we, either as therapists or as trainers or teachers, or as friends or as neighbors, or as a stranger that person meets by chance, we don't have to be in our office to help other humans. And so yes, if a person has been, let me achieve my goals and ambition, eat and sleep, and then things don't happen and there's a big loss, that could be a blessing if they don't take destructive next steps for them to emerge. And for me, REBT is one of the most effective, inspiring, uplifting approaches that I know of. I'm not saying it's the only one, but what I said.
Right. Yeah, that's inspiring. Dr. Debbie, I'm curious to know that when you train other practitioners in different cultures, right, do you see that people respond differently to REBT?
Uh, no, but. So the big answer is no, because as we touched on earlier, wisdom is wisdom. Effective tools, encouraging realistic optimism, which REBT presents, reaches, I believe, any human being of any culture. It it's a global, universal wisdom that is not influenced by a particular culture. Now, the little but, different cultures have different sense of humor. And what an audience in New York might laugh hysterically at, an audience in a very conservative village in Europe might not find funny. Or, kind of humor of India that can be kind of wild and at times slapstick and looks at the dualities in life and so on. In some other cultures, they wouldn't understand or laugh as much. So REBT, in my observation, universally embraced and appreciated. But when teaching it, I do my best to tailor my examples or my humor to not have attendees resist and think that was silly.
Right, and that makes you an engaging facilitator. Okay. Dr. Debbie, because there is a difference between reading about a therapeutic approach in a textbook and actually experiencing it, what tends to surprise people the most when they actually experience REBT with you?
And all your questions are so great. Many people have said to me after I've given a workshop, and particularly after I've given live demonstrations, that they were surprised that they never knew REBT was like that, because from certain textbooks and certain videos, they got the wrong, talking about myths earlier, the wrong impression that it was, and this is wrong, always forceful and confronting and in your face. And, in any modality, in any profession, there are the effective and the ineffective practitioners. And so the effective REBT practitioner is not one tone or one manner for everyone. This is REBT. No, we calibrate our tone and our touch and our manner. If you come, if let's say someone came and volunteered, and so what's the issue? How can I help? Well, I'm always feeling I have to be perfect and better than everyone else, and I'm a failure if I don't achieve these things. Then, for their benefit, and I'm noticing their tone, I might be a little more, well, do I have your permission to be assertive with you? I ask for their permission, and usually they say yes if they genuinely want help. And so where is it written? And they're well in my head, and so I can be more vigorous and zestful. Now, if someone is creating depression or is suffering grief, which I will point out to them, by the way, grief is healthy, depression is not, and we talk about the difference, right? So, but my tone will be different, softer, and may progress as I pay attention to feedback from the volunteer attendee, if I'm demonstrating. If they're like, okay, a little more vigorous, then I might then, for their benefit, become more vigorous. And so one of the things that surprises people is that it's not one manner, one style for every person, that it's not rushed, that it's not, okay, what are you telling yourself to make yourself miserable? It's like we get there organically when it's done effectively. Many are surprised by the humor, by the empathy, by the compassion, and how non-rigid it is. And finally, how effective, how life-changingly effective it can be for some people in a very short period of time if they're willing to maintain awareness and make effort.
Ah, nice, interesting. That's very inspiring, Dr. Debbie, and it is giving so much clarity about what all REBT entails. And I'm sure there are many questions that our participants who are attending the session must be having. I would encourage all the participants to please put your questions in the chat box, and Dr. Debbie will share her thoughts on it. Right? My questions are getting over, and it is over to you then. Okay. Okay. So, Dr. Debbie, perhaps let's get into the therapy room a little. Okay, we don't want to give away too much about what participants might experience in your in-person workshop that we are hosting in November, but we would like to have a glimpse of it. Okay, so like let's imagine that a client is sitting in front of us and is saying that if I don't meet everyone's expectations, I have let them down completely. So, as a REBT practitioner, what would immediately catch your attention when you hear that statement? What would you be curious about?
Right. Well, two things scream out at me that I glean from that sentence. One is the absolutistic nature. I've let them down completely. The other thing that screams out to me that I would explore is the need of that person to please everyone, to meet their expectation, that what seems, and this I will explore, I have hypotheses. I don't assume anything without evidence, and that's where the conversation comes in. But there appears to be a need, not a desire, but a need for approval and to meet everyone's expectations and not to let them down. And then, though they didn't say anything about what I'm about to say, I hypothesize that their level of unconditional acceptance is either abysmally low or absent, that they invisibilize themselves, that they're not aware of having worth or enough worth, not enoughness. So these are things I would explore. Now, one of the things that obviously in the workshop in November I'll elaborate on, but usually in REBT therapy, in the first session, we clarify the goal. What brings you here? How can I help? Now, this is not set in concrete. Sometimes there's an apparent goal and it's achieved, but in the process, look at this area that can use some help. So the goals may be added. And also, as therapy moves along and more things become evident, the person more aware, the therapist more aware, we can add goals. But from the get-go of seeing this person, we would have clarified some goal, discussed it somehow. And if that statement was different from the area of the already agreed upon goal, boy, would that be high on the list. And I would say one of the main targets would be helping the person have unconditional self-acceptance, enjoying approval from others, but not needing it to know they have worth simply because they exist.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a unique perspective that REBT offers to this one statement, and so much to hear from you and so much knowledge pouring in. I am done with my questions. And if there are participants who have questions, please put it in the chat box. Saili, who is the psychologist and manager at Shyro Health, is going to lead the chat questions, if any. If any questions are there in the chat box. Saili?
Before Saili take
Yes,
up,
Dr. Jenny. Yes.
Dr. Debbie, I'm very happy to see the autobiography of Dr. Albert Ellis behind you, all out.
Mm.
I'm extremely happy to see that. Such an amazing book, which will help us to
Yeah.
understand the journey of Albert Ellis. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I took that photo, by the way. He was
Wow.
smiling at me, but now he's smiling at all of you.
By the way,
Yeah.
this photo is there in our website, in this same dress, I think, with him and you together.
Mhm.
Cool. Nice to know. Great. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ginny. It's because of you that we're doing this. You really initiated this. And as I said earlier, you do so much. Not only in India, actually, you travel other places. You're very remarkable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jenny. So, Saili, do we have questions?
Yes, yes. So we have many questions coming up for Debbie ma'am. And
Mhm.
here you can go for the first one that is coming from Rajini Sharma. She's asking that, hi Dr. Debbie, how are you? My question is, does REBT applicable to ASD and ADHD children, even with child has intellectual disabilities?
Mhm.
Yes, it is. Of course, it depends on the degree of their disability. So it's a broad question. Every child that's said to have that condition is an individual. But one of the things that would, I think, help practically all of the children with that tendency or condition would be unconditional acceptance. That, and by the way, not only the therapist, what's really most important is in the home, that parents and people around them learn the attitudes and the way of communicating that would be helpful to the child. And by the way, additionally, it can be very demanding to have a child like that, or a very brilliant child who with a lot of energy. And so it serves parents well to learn principles of REBT so they can train themselves. It's a choice to lower the frustration, to remain steady when there are potential triggers, and to model patience to the child and let the child know, whether you're the therapist or the parent or whoever, how unconditionally loved they are. Now, boundaries are important, whether a child has ADHD or not, that certain behaviors are not okay, and if you do them, there are consequences. So unconditional acceptance doesn't mean do whatever you like, you have worth. Yes, you have worth if you do whatever you like, but bad actions will have consequences. So I hope that answers that question. It can be helpful. Again, if the child is more intellectually savvy, and particularly as they get older, they can understand the principles and apply them and steady themselves. And when they notice racing, choose to apply with vigor grounding techniques. Yeah. And for some who don't have high intellectual ability or whatever, there are still attitudes that can be modeled and communicated in a way they understand that can be helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope that has answered her question too, and definitely maybe we can have more insight about this in our 2 days workshop.
Oh,
The
yeah.
another
See, can I just say, that's one of the things I forgot to say before in one of Nazneen's questions, like what do you get live that you don't get from video? The question like that. Time with me, and I can answer live questions that relate to the lifespan up until that time, or on that particular day, there was someone with road rage, and so we can address issues in real time. And again, to me, up until now, see how I'm not using absolutistic language. I didn't say up until now, always the live demonstrations were but up until now, I would say practically always the live demonstrations have been close to the most empowering part of a workshop that one doesn't get from videos and books. So thank you for letting me say that. I hope to see lots of you and then some, tell colleagues and others, I'm not saying this, and I mean this from my heart, for self-promotion. I'm saying this because there's so much crazy right now in our world, around the globe. And I don't know of a better, more practical and more compassionate tool than REBT. So I would love many people. Yeah, there's certain dynamism in workshops when there are a lot of people, but the more people are stable and healthy at times like this, which are not uncommon throughout history, humans are humans, but the better, because each one of us, what we learn, what we model as best as we humanly can, we're all fallible, but can affect another person who can affect another person and another 3 people. So I digressed. Over back to you, Celie.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, ma'am. So there is another question which is very interesting. Padmini is asking us that she's a clinical psychologist and she faces issues with defensive clients. So is there any way that we can actually, help people who want to seek therapy, but they are quite defensive during the therapeutic intervention?
Great question, all great questions. So there are 2 potentially conflicting comments there. They want help through therapy, but they're defensive, right? The defensiveness doesn't help them help themselves. And so I guess one of the things, again, depending on the individual, we're all different, but generally speaking, I might explore the defensiveness in a non-critical, non-judgmental way, but to share with them, I share your goal of wanting help with ... whatever it is. And I'm noticing, observing, feeling some defensiveness. Can we explore this? What are you telling yourself to create that feeling? Is it something about me and my manner? Am I expressing things too quickly or too slowly? Or do you feel I'm being patronizing or matronizing or themanizing, whatever the language is? I would explore that with them. And so if we can reduce, potentially remove the defensiveness, because we're on the same team, wanting them to feel better, then hopefully we can get to the real issue. Now, if someone is rigidly defensive and not indicating over time, and I would give it time, not just one session they're defensive, I'm not the best person for you. But if over time it doesn't lessen or it increases and I don't see progress, I might, in a non-rejecting way, because I'm interested in their progress, say, no, it seems our dynamic hasn't so far contributed to achieving more of the goal we discussed earlier. So maybe DBT is better for you, or maybe I know a fabulous practitioner, Dr. Ginny Gopinath. He might align with you more. So an effective therapist doesn't allow any ego to interfere with what's best for the client, and will happily refer them on, but not give up too quickly. Give it a go, explore the defensiveness, not just in one session, over time, modify, and listen to the client. Have hypotheses, but then check out the facts from them.
That's definitely insightful, sir. So there is one more question. So we will ask this last question, ma'am. There are a lot of questions that are coming up, but I'm very sure that we will connect again with all of these who are right now seeing us right now, connected with us. So definitely they all will get an opportunity to ask those questions. Right now, we will just take one more last question. So there is this very interesting one that is that we have got from Agram Singh, and he's asking, since you mentioned about Patanjali and Vedanta, have you ever taken any learning from that? And if it is yes, he would like to know more about it.
Help me, Dr. Ginny. What's the quote? Yoga Chittam Vriddhi.
That is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, second sutra of Patanjali Yoga Sutra.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I fully understand the question. I'm not a teacher of the wisdom of Patanjali and Kashmir Shaivism and yoga. I just know some things. Some of the most profoundly magnificent periods of my life was when after I got my degrees, I spent time in India in an ashram studying those philosophies, meditating and learning yoga and all of that. And I visited India a number of times since then. I met Mother Teresa. And then years ago, I forget how many years, was it 12 years, Ginny? I was in Mangalore, thanks to Dr. Ginny. And so what I heard from people and learned in my past and then during my trips there, even from Mother Teresa, who wasn't necessarily a follower of Vedanta or Hinduism, she was Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but wisdom is wisdom, compassion is compassion. One of her messages is in yoga, is in every religion that I know of, at least the spiritual, not authoritarian part of it. And one of the things Mother Teresa said to me when I was babbling something like, oh, Mother Teresa, I'm so in awe, her sacrificing, her holding incompetent babies and adults as they died. And when I said incontinent, not incompetent, you probably have heard of Mother Saint Teresa. And I was like, oh, Mother Teresa, I could never do what you do. Sounds very precocious to say that, but I was in a fog. I was so dazzled by her authenticity and her heart, And she said, no, Mother Teresa, what I do is important, and what you, as a psychologist and a human being, what you do is important too. And here's the message I think Patanjali would agree with, and any wise soul. Here was her message. Just keep love alive in your heart and share it with everyone you meet. So I hope I answered your question.
I just want to answer Agrim.
Agreed.
Agrim, that Dr. Debbie was in India long ago. Before we met in Bangalore, she came here to learn yoga and Vedanta much before all these REBT also, right?
Right, yeah, but before I was with this guy, yeah, I was in that chapter of my growth journey, then with him, first my mentor teacher, who became also my beloved husband, and now in this chapter of my life, and I hope till the day I die, at least at 170 or older, in good health, of course. Life, if we choose to look at it this way, is a journey, and if we so choose, and if we cherish this gift of life, that is finite, and there is a way to minimize suffering and maximize joy and help other people. So I intend and hope to be on my growth journey till the day I die, and to contribute to others what I learn as I journey along. And yes, indeed, Dr. Ginny, that was an amazing chapter when I was quite a young adult, and here I am where I'm not that old of an adult, but older, with more to go.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Debbie. Thank you for being with us today and making REBT feel so practical and relevant. I think we've got a better understanding about REBT and also a glimpse of how powerful it can be. And sharing your personal thoughts, your personal moments with us, and you transferred the REBT passion to all of us. Thank you for sharing these moments with us. And to all our participants, thank you for spending this evening with us. It is time to wind up the session. Thank you for all your questions, your curiosity. We know some questions are not answered, but there is still time, and we will get those answered in the November workshop, what we are referring to quite a few times during the session today. So Dr. Debbie is coming down to India in November, and she's conducting a 2-day in-person workshop in Bangalore, which will have hybrid access. So you can join the session online as well and experience REBT along with her, and make maximum use of the knowledge and the passion that she would pour out in the 2-day workshop and the live demonstrations that she would do. My colleague is sharing a link in the chat box, which will take you to the page where you will come to know more about the workshop. And we look forward to seeing all of you in November for this workshop. Thank you so much for this wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you and good night. And a special thank you to Dr. Debbie and Dr. Janie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Debbie. See you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. See you. Come in November, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.